Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
Hare Krishna. So we'll read from Bhagavad Gita as it is, chapter 13, verse number 22. So let's recite the verse responsibly, one line at a time. Purusha prakrtisto hi bhunte prakrtijan gunan karanam gunasanghasya saddasadyo nijanmasu Purusha prakrtistho hi bhunte prakrtijan gunan karanam gunasanghasya saddasadyo nijanmasu Purusha prakrtistho hi bhunte prakrtijan gunan karanam gunasanghasya saddasadyo nijanmasu. Translation, please repeat after me. The living entity in material nature thus follows the ways of life, enjoying the three modes of nature. This is due to his association with that material nature. Thus he meets with good and evil
Thus he meets with good and evil
among various species.
among various species.
Purport by His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada ki
Jai.
This verse is very important for an understanding of how the living entities transmigrate from one body to another. It is explained in the second chapter that the living entity is transmigrating from one body to another just as one changes dress. This change of dress is due to his attachment to material existence. As long as he is captivated by this false manifestation, he has to continue transmigration from one body to another. Due to his desire to lord it over material nature, he is put into such undesirable circumstances. Under the influence of material desire, the entity is born sometimes as demigod, sometimes as man, sometimes as a beast, as a bird, as a worm, as an aquatic, as a saintly man, as a bug. This is going on. And in all cases, the living entity thinks himself to be the master of his circumstances. Yet, he is under the influence of material nature. How he is put into such different bodies is explained here. It is due to association with different modes of nature. One has to rise, therefore, above the three material modes and become situated in transcendental position. This is called Krishna consciousness. Unless one is situated in Krishna's consciousness, his material consciousness will oblige him to transfer from one body to another because he has material desires since time immemorial. But he has to change that conception. That change can be effected only by hearing from authoritative sources. The best example is here. Arjuna is hearing the signs of God from Krishna. The living entity, if he submits to this hearing process, will lose his long cherished desire to dominate material nature. And gradually and proportionately, as he reduces his long desire to dominate, he comes to enjoy spiritual happiness. In a Vedic mantra, it is said that as he becomes learned in association with the Supreme Personality of Godhead, he proportionately relishes his eternal blissful life. Om Jnana-timirandasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshurmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. Shri Chaitanya Manobhishtam Sthapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamiyam Dadati Swapadantikam Vancha Kalpatarubhyasya Kripa Sindhubhya eva cha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha. Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Srivasadi Gaura Bhaktavinda. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. I request everyone to maybe move forward, please. Purusha prakatisto hi bhunte prakati janunan karanam gunasangasya sadasat yoni. The living entity in material nature thus follows the ways of life, enjoying the three modes of nature. This is due to his association with that material nature. Thus he meets with good and evil among various species. Hare Krishna. Thank you very much for joining this evening's Sunday Peace program. So this is an important verse from the 13th chapter of Bhagavad Gita, which is entitled The Nature, the Enjoyer and the Consciousness. So as you know, the 13th chapter is the first chapter of the Jnana section of the Bhagavad Gita. This is an important section. So in Bhagavad Gita, there are total 700 verses. Out of that, 574 verses have been spoken by Lord Krishna himself directly. 84 verses by Arjuna, 41 by Sanjaya, and 1 verse by Dhritarashtra. And this, every verse which Krishna speaks, it defines certain concept, it addresses certain issues, and it gives a very important instruction. And these instructions are important today as much they were 5,000 years back. In fact, they were important even millions years back also. And they are going to be same important, they will have the same importance millions of years from today. Because this has come directly from the Supreme Lord. That's why it doesn't have an impact of time. So Bhagavad Gita, as you know, there are 18 verses, 18 chapters. And these chapters are divided into 3 main sections. We are originally from the spiritual world. And for some reason, we have come down to this material world because we wanted to enjoy separately from Krishna. Now, there's only 2 different ways we can enjoy this material world. One, the first way we can enjoy is using our gross senses. We have 5 gross senses, right? We have eyes, ears, nose, tongue, and then the skin. These are the 5 gross senses. So the first type of enjoyment is using these 5 gross senses. That's one type of enjoyment. But when we want to use these 5 gross senses for enjoyment, there's always an action involved. For example, if I want to say I want to enjoy my tongue by tasting something good, I have to obviously earn something, buy food, bring it, cook, and then offer and then taste. So there's a lot of action. If I want to smell something good, obviously I need to buy some flowers or buy some perfumes, which requires money, which requires earning. So there's always an action involved when we want to engage our gross senses for enjoyment. So the first 6 chapters of Bhagavad Gita, what it does is how we can use our actions. In other words, how we can transform our action into the love of God. That's the first 6 chapters of Bhagavad Gita. In other words, how we can transform karma into bhakti. So that's what is addressed in the first 6 chapters. The second way we can enjoy in this world is using our subtle senses, mainly the mind and intelligence, right? Sometimes you see the great philosophers, the poet, they sit in a solitary place, growing long beard, and they contemplate on certain things and they enjoy. So that is also type of enjoyment. So that contemplation also brings immense happiness. So what the last 6 chapters of Bhagavad Gita, what it does is how we can engage the subtle senses, or how we can transform our contemplation power into the love of God. In other words, the last 6 chapters of Bhagavad Gita deals with how we can transform jnana into bhakti. So these are the first 6 and the last 6 chapters. And the middle 6 chapter, it doesn't matter what position you are, whether you are in contemplation mode, whether you are in action mode, doesn't matter. Whichever level you are, you can be elevated to the love of God or bhakti level. So that's why the middle 6 chapters of Bhagavad Gita are very important and they're quite powerful. Because any level, anyone can go to that level of bhakti. So the verse what we talk today comes from the 13th chapter of Bhagavad Gita. Now every scripture, there is something called a root verse. A root is a part of a tree on which the entire tree stands. If the root is removed, the tree is going to fall, right? Same way, any scripture, if you take it, there is a root verse on which the entire scripture, every verse of that scripture is going to depend upon. And if you misinterpret that verse, the root verse, or if someone removes that root verse, it's as good as you have not understood that particular scripture. So that root verse is very important. So in Bhagavad Gita, out of 700 verses, the root verse comes in the 18th chapter of Bhagavad Gita, the 66th verse, which is Sarva Dharman Parityajya Mamekam Sharanam Bhaja Aham Tam Sarva Papebhyo Mokshayishami Ma Shucha. The Krishna speaks different yoga system, different chapters, and so many concepts ultimately bring Arjuna to that particular verse, the root verse of Bhagavad Gita, which is 18.66. So if someone misinterprets this verse, it means the entire Bhagavad Gita is lost. You know, there are some smart Brahmanas in India, they feel that this 18.66 verse, Krishna actually made a mistake. Or Vasudeva must have typed it wrong, there's a typo. They feel that in 4th chapter, Krishna says, Paritranaya sadhuna vinashaya chitudushkara dharma samsthapanataya. It means Krishna says, to establish dharma I have come. And in 1866, what does he say? Sarva dharma parityajya. Give up all dharma. So they say, no, this is wrong. Krishna cannot do this mistake. So that's why some smart Brahmanas, they chant this verse as Sarva adharman parityajya mamekam sharanam pranam. So you can understand, if you don't understand that one verse of Bhagavad Gita, root verse, you have messed up the entire Bhagavad Gita. So root verse is the key. So Bhagavatam, if you look at it, 18,000 verses are there. And entire Bhagavatam, 18,000 verses, comes on that one root verse which comes in the first canto of Bhagavatam, which is Ete cham cha kalatum cha Krishnastu Bhagavan Swayam Indriyadi Vyakulam Lokam Hridayante Yuge Yuge. So you look at all 18,000 verses, they have to comply with this one root verse. So that's why our acharyas have written a lot of commentary on that root verse. Same way, some of you have studied the Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu, important book as far as Gaudiya Vaishnava is concerned. Hundreds of verses are there. But again, entire Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu, if you have to sit on one root verse, that is Anya Bilashita Shunyam Jnana Karmadyanavritam Anukulena Krishnanu Shilanam Bhakti Uttama. So this like that, every scripture has a root verse. Now, scriptures also have something called seed verse, Bijavakya. Now, seed is a verse is which one is expands certain section of a scripture or certain chapters. For example, if you have a big tree, there's a small seed next to it, especially when you are growing tulsi, right? Then there's a small plant comes, right? So same way, Bijavakya means that particular verse which expands certain section of a scripture. And our acharyas mention that the verse which we chanted today, 13.22, is a Bijavakya, or the seed verse which expands the entire Jnana section of the Bhagavad Gita. In other words, this one verse, Purusha Prakriti Sohi Punkte Prakriti Jan Gunan Karanam Gunasangasya Sat Asat Yoni Janmasu. This one verse actually expands the entire Jnana section from chapter 13 to chapter 18. Now why is that? Because in this verse, Krishna talks about what is the root cause of all the problems in the world. There is no shortage of problems in this world. There are financial problems, health problems, relationship issues, diplomatic issues, environmental issues, like cosmic issues, so many different issues. And people are busy identifying the issues and trying to resolve the issues. That's why there are a lot of advocates, kind of guides, conferences, so many things are happening. People are trying busy understanding the different problems. But has anyone really thought what is the root cause of all the issues in this world? And Krishna says yes. And that he explains in chapter 13, verse number 22, the one which we discussed. He says the root cause of all the issues in this world is because we, the living entities, in these living entities are situated in the material nature. Purusha Prakriti Stoira. Krishna uses the perfect word here. He says situated, because we are not originally from here. And because we are situated in this material nature, we come in contact with the three modes of material nature, which we try to enjoy. And because we try to enjoy these three modes of material nature, or rather material nature, Krishna says we go through the process of transmigration, taking birth after birth in different species, and in every species we suffer and we kind of have an illusory happiness. So Krishna says this is the root cause of problem. So tomorrow if there is a stock market crash, or if you lose job, everything, you can all connect to this verse and say, this is the cause. It's little Krishna, whenever he explains, he brings to the main point. So this is the seed of all problems. That is why this is called Bijavakya, which comes in the 13th chapter of Bhagavad Gita. Now whenever you have a seed, what do you need? You need to water, right? So now this desire we have to enjoy, now what is the water for the seed? Is three modes of material nature. Because we want to enjoy, and the enjoyment is through the three modes of material nature. So what is that three modes of material nature? Krishna explains that in the 14th chapter of Bhagavad Gita. Because seed is in the 13th chapter, and the water is explained in the 14th chapter, which is entitled Three Modes of Material Nature. So you have a seed, you water that seed, and then what happens? That it grows and eventually becomes a big tree, right? Now what is the nature of that tree? How does that tree look like? What are its branches? What are its leaves? What is this? All this Krishna explains in the 15th chapter of Bhagavad Gita, where he starts with saying this is Ashwata, big tree, Urdhva Mula, Adho Shaka, Ashwata. Like he talks about all these branches and this and that. You know, Krishna gives a complete explanation of that in the 15th chapter. So seed is 13th, water is in 14th, and the tree is in the 15th chapter of Bhagavad Gita. Now in 15th chapter also, a little interesting, Krishna takes a little detour and says, okay, this is a big Ashwata banyan tree, but how can you get out of that tree? So Krishna, even though it's a very short chapter, Krishna gives an important instruction in the 15th chapter. That's why that particular chapter is called Purushottama Yoga, or in English is called the Yoga of the Supreme Person. So now you have the big tree, right? And there are all these living entities live on this tree. Now does that mean that every person who is on that tree, they are all same? Obviously not. There are extreme cases. Some people are on the top of that tree who are relatively pious. They have a divine qualities, right? And then there is another extreme who are at the bottom of the tree. They are demoniac qualities. So they are at the bottom of the tree. So what is the nature of these two types of people, extreme people? Demoniac and also divine. That Krishna explains in the 16th chapter of Bhagavad Gita, which is entitled Divine and Demoniac Qualities. So that's the 16th chapter. Now obviously not everyone is divine or demoniac, right? Most of the people, if you see, they're average, right? Like when people go to India, people get some, especially the Westerners, the first thing they kind of really, makes them like confusing is everyone, no matter what they are doing, somehow they are religious. You look at the auto driver, in the morning he has a small picture of God, he will do some flowers and he will put agarbatti. Say with the shopkeepers, in the morning they put agarbatti, everything. Once that is done, they will continue their cheating business. But still, in the morning, the first thing they do is they have some faith, right? So some faith is there, every business, every type of people. Some people have a lot of faith. They go to temple, they do something, they are into social activities. I remember, the town where I grew up is on the coastal area in India. And generally, those who live in the coastal area, for them, Ishta Devata is the fish, They cannot live without fish. That's like there. So only God they praise Matsya Avatar, So that's there. But because there's the influence of Maharashtra, state of Maharashtra in our region, so the Ganesha Chaturthi is a very important festival. Lord Ganesh. And generally people keep for 5 days. And those 5 days, they don't eat anything, which is not offered to the Lord. So for them, those 5 days, eating of fish is, they feel like they are fish out of the water. Like really difficult. So I remember when I was growing up, I used to go to our family friends' home for this Ganesh Chaturthi. And the 5th day is important because it's a Visarjan, they have a big puja. And they will take the Ganesh, out of the main door. As soon as it gets out of the main door, somebody will enter from the back door with a fish bag. So this is so they have a faith, but still they are neither demoniac nor on the other side. So that faith is there. So if you look at the people, they have different faiths. So what is the nature of all these average people on that tree? That Krishna explains in the 17th chapter of Bhagavad Gita, which is entitled Divisions of Faith. So that's how, again, see, one verse is expanding the entire Jnana section of the Bhagavad Gita. And then finally Krishna comes to the 18th chapter where he summarizes everything, the entire Bhagavad Gita, which is known as Stuti-phala, and then gives the main root words of Bhagavad Gita 18.66. So, in other words, you can see this one verse is a root cause of all the issues which Krishna explains. Now, this verse says the living entities are situated in the material world and they come in contact with the 3 modes of material nature. And what are the 3 modes? You have Sattva Guna, Raja Guna, Tama Guna. So everything in this world, whether different types of people, different animals, different colors, different food, different songs, different books, different vacation places, everything what you can see, everything which has manifested is a product of these 3 modes: goodness, passion, and ignorance. So these 3 modes by themselves cannot give a happiness or distress. Okay, these 3 modes. But when they combine and form something, then we are attracted. For example, these 3 modes are like the 3 basic colors, right? We have red, yellow, and blue. Now, red and yellow and blue color by themselves may not be very attractive. But when they combine and form thousands and millions of different shades, and when you use that to draw a painting, that painting you will be attracted. Or when a beautiful fabric is made, that is attractive. So same way, these 3 modes of material nature, they combine in different ways and creates millions of different attractions, and that what is attracts us and binds us in this material world. The question is, why Krishna created these 3 modes of material nature? Right? As I mentioned, originally we are from the spiritual world, and we have come here because we wanted to enjoy separately from the Krishna. Now, because in the spiritual world, we had no idea about how to enjoy with matter. So Krishna has to give us a different type of body and different type of suit, like a dress, so that we can enjoy in this material world. For example, say somebody wants to go in the space mission, right? So they are given certain different types of suit because the temperature, the gravity, everything is different. So same way, when we decided to come down here, Krishna said, okay, I will give you the gross body, I will give you the subtle body, and also Krishna, what he did is he created these 3 modes of material nature as an interface or as a medium between our consciousness and the matter. So these 3 modes actually act as a medium between our consciousness, which is spiritual, and the matter. Because without these 3 modes of material nature, as soul, the spiritual energy, what we have, consciousness, we can never ever enjoy this material world. So that's the reason Krishna has created these 3 modes of material nature. Now these 3 modes of material nature, right, they shapes our perceptions and they shape our actions. Now, how it shapes our perception? Let's think about it. At 3 people, like 3 different people, when they look at the same object, we'll have 3 different perceptions. Say 3 friends are driving on a car and they look at a beautiful garden where people are sitting and jogging and all, The first person might look at the garden and think, oh, it's so wonderful, this garden. Maybe I should go there, take my book, Bhagavad Gita or Bhagavatam, sit down and read for some time. It's such a beautiful place. The second person might think, wow, this is such a nice place. So many people are there. It will be wonderful if I can start some small shop there and maybe sell some samosas or some Pepsis or whatever it is. I can make money and then maybe I can do something with that. So see, look at the same object looked at a different way. Now the third person might think, oh, such a beautiful place. If I had a yoga mat or something, I can just sleep in the garden for a couple of hours. Now, why it is happening this way? Because the modes which are affecting these three people in different ways. So perception will change because of three modes. It's not only perception, our action can also be different. See, sometimes we hear there's going to be a storm in North Jersey. A person in goodness, he will listen, okay, there's going to be a storm. Then he will think, okay, how long is going to be the storm? What all things I need at home? He will think properly and then he will go out and buy those things and come back. That's the mode of goodness. Mode of passion, as soon as a storm, he will just run to the shop. He will go to the shop, right? He will take 2 carts, he will buy all these things, frozen items, without even thinking whether there is going to be power or not. He will just buy everything, water, everything which is required for next 2 months. So that's the mode of passion. The ignorance one, he will think, oh, anyway, this storm is not for me, maybe somebody else, my neighbor. So he's not going to act at all. So goodness will think and act. Passion will act without thinking, and the ignorance neither acts nor thinks. So this is all happening because of the three modes of material nature. So we can all kind of evaluate ourselves which mode we are in. So this is what is happening. Now, obviously, all of us have inherited certain modes because of our previous karma, right? Some of us are passionate, some of us are calm by nature, and some of us are lazy by nature, right? But it doesn't mean just because we have inherited some karma from past that we cannot change. No, we can change. If we are in the mode of passion or ignorance, if we associate with people with goodness, if you read the books in goodness, if you listen the music in goodness, that mode can change. So it's not that. Otherwise we'll be like a robot, right? We'll be the product of our past karma. So these three modes of material nature which are there in this world, Krishna says that we come in contact with this. So then the question can be asked is, can we really enjoy this material nature or three modes of nature? Can we really enjoy? Now who is in charge of this three material nature? Durga, who is the energy of Krishna. So, but Durga or the material nature is considered as an illusory energy. Illusion means we feel that we are going to get it, but we are never going to get it. Right? That's illusion. And His Holiness Devamrita Swami gives a wonderful analogy about this whole concept of Durga and how it works. He says there was a young boy, and then he was in love with his classmate young girl. But the problem was the girl was from a very rich family, so she had her own taste and own likings. But this boy is in love with the girl who is a boy from a average family. So what to do? So the boy goes to his first friend and says, "Can I borrow your suit?" So he wears his suit, tries to impress her. Next day he goes to another friend, says, "Can I borrow your car for a day?" So again he tries to impress. So he goes to different friends every day, borrowing different things, the jewelry, the computer, whatever he needs, just to impress her. And finally, one day he thinks, now I have impressed her enough, it's time for me to propose her. So he wears all these beautiful clothes, the best car, and he has a rose and a diamond ring which he borrowed also. Everything he goes. And then he's about to propose her. And as he went close to propose her, another young, beautiful looking, handsome, rich man, with a lot of strength, intelligent, comes, holds her hand and just walks away. Now imagine the condition of this boy who worked all his life just to impress her, and this girl just walks away. Now unfortunately, this is our condition in this material world. We want to enjoy Durga, right? Material nature. That's why we go to first friend, then we go out and say, can you give me help? And we work hard. Then we go to the second friend, Lakshmi, and say, can you give me wealth? And we work hard for that. And then we get the family, the house, and all these things. And finally we think, okay, I have achieved enough in my life. I want to enjoy this Durga or the material nature, and I want to propose her. And then as we go closer to Durga and say, I want to propose, this young bluish boy looks very handsome, strong and intelligent, comes and says, Mama Maya Durataya. This Durga is mine. So that is the problem. Krishna says, no matter how we work hard, this Durga or material nature is never ours, because Krishna, Bhagavad Gita says, Mama Maya Durataya. She is mine. So that is, in sense, this in the seed verse, Bijavaki, Krishna is saying, you try to enjoy, but you can never enjoy. Now let's think for a minute. Even if you get the material nature, can that material or the matter, can it give happiness to you? Or in other words, can matter create the happiness and distress? Actually not. And this concept, Krishna explains in the previous verse, in 13.21. He says, in the 13.21, Karya karana kartvate hetu prakati muchyate purusha sukha dukkana bhoktatve hetu ruchyate. Nature is said to be the cause of all material causes and effects, whereas the living entity is the cause of the various suffering and enjoyment in this world. In other words, what Krishna is saying, matter cannot create happiness or distress. Matter is completely neutral. For example, if I have a glass, I just throw. That's action. So what Krishna is saying here, the matter can create cause and effect, but it's neutral. So what does it mean? I have a glass, I throw. That's a cause. Effect is, glass is broken. I have water, I just throw on the floor, and the floor gets wet. Right? So there's cause and effect. So if you think about everything in this world, there's a cause and effect. But Krishna is saying, cause and effects by nature cannot create happiness. For example, now there's a World Cup soccer going on, right? Now what is the cause? Somebody kicks the ball. That's the cause. Effect is, that ball goes into the net or post. That's the effect. Now, that cause and effect, can it create a happiness? Not really. Because if that cause and effect had created happiness, everybody in the world would have been happy. Right? And that cause and effect cannot create a distress also, because everybody would have been in distress. So, but if you think about it, what Krishna is saying, that cause and effect, what creates the happiness or distress is the attachment, but not the matter. It's a very interesting concept if you think deeply into that. Right? Because say if Germans are playing against Brazil, Germans kick the ball, cause, right? And it goes in the post. Now, Germans are happy. Brazilians are in distress. And Americans are neutral. They don't care for this, right? So, the same thing, same cause and effect, but three different effects are happening. Why? Because it's not the ball, but it's the attachment to that, whatever material cause and effect. So Krishna, that's why in this verse it says, Bhoktatve hetu ruchyate. This attachment. And because of this attachment, what Krishna is saying, creates all this happiness and the distress. Now, see how this attachment, right? Attachment is a very subtle thing. Sometimes we don't understand how it works. I will give you another analogy. Say you have a beautiful car. The first scenario is you went to work and we are coming back from the office and you had a fender bender and your car is damaged. Now, obviously, you are going to be in distress, right? That's the first scenario. Second scenario, say you had a car, you sold that car to your neighbor, and a week after, you see that car is damaged because he had a fender bender. Now, are you in distress this time? Not really. Now, what happened? The car is same, there's nothing changed. But in one case, you feel the distress, the other feel. So, what has changed is just that attachment. So, attachment is very, very subtle. So, car is not giving a happiness or distress. So, according to Krishna, what he is saying in this verse is no matter what, whether you have the most expensive car, most expensive house, jewelry, or anything, vacation, they themselves cannot give you happiness or distress, but is our attachment which creates. So, unfortunately, people don't understand this, or sometimes when they understand, it's too late. And this is the reason you see so many people, they are into mental depression. And recently you see whether it's Robin Williams from Hollywood, or Anthony Bourdain from CNN, or Kate Spade, a designer, they all committed suicide, ended their life, even though they had everything what matter can give. Why? Because this Krishna is saying this attachment, when you have this matter, that is a wrong place for the attachment. So it has to be rightly placed. So that is how Krishna is saying in this Bija Vakya, our attachment comes. Now because we are we are attracted to the modes of material nature, what Krishna is saying is Sad Asad Yoni Janmashu. We go through transmigration process. So what is transmigration? See, we have a body, we have three different dimensions of our body, right? I have a gross body, I have a subtle body, and I also have a transcendental part of my body, right? Gross body, subtle body, and transcendental part. Transmigration is nothing but moving the subtle body and the transcendental body from one gross body to another gross body. Now it might look simple, but it's very, very painful. That's why Krishna is using the word Sat Asat Yoni Janmasu. So we go through this transmigration process, right? The death itself is a very painful process. And before death, there's a old age, which is really difficult. And there's a death itself is a difficult process. And between the death and the birth, there is certain period, and depending upon the karma, that jiva goes through, or the living entity goes through certain process. That is really more painful, and all these horror things, if you want to read, you can see the Garuda Purana, and it explains all these things. And then you take the birth, and birth is more painful. So whole transmigration process is really painful. And then we have done this millions of times, going through 8.4 million species. And transmigration doesn't mean that it's only on this earth planet. It can be any planet in this universe. It can happen. That's why Krishna says, Sambhavami yuge yuge, I come again and again. I cannot see this pity condition. And that's why I want to help. Now, when Krishna appears, we should not think that Krishna is also going through the transmigration process, or he is also going through the incarnation like us. Krishna is an avatar, and we go through incarnation. Now, even though Srila Prabhupada has translated avatar as incarnation, there's a big difference between incarnation and avatar. And Prabhupada knew it, but intentionally used the word incarnation. Because if you ask people what is the meaning of avatar, different people have different concept. Everyone believes that avatar means going from one realm to another realm. That everyone agrees. But what really is avatar, how Krishna appears, people have misconception. If you ask people in Hollywood, they have completely different conception about avatar. According to Hollywood intelligence, avatar means going from our gross body to digital body. It's actually very low thinking, because digital body doesn't have a consciousness. It works on software or certain knobs or switches. So that you cannot call as avatar. Avatar is such an important high word. They have brought it down to the digital level. So that is the Hollywood concept of avatar. Now monists or the impersonalists, they have a different concept of avatar. According to them, avatar means going from spiritual realm to the material realm. So they feel that when Krishna appears, he was in spiritual world originally, but he comes to material world in material form. But that doesn't make sense at all. Because why, if Krishna comes in the material form, and if he is also, in fact, he is also impacted by three modes of material nature, then there is no need to read this Bhagavad Gita at all. Because I can write my own Bhagavad Gita. So why read Krishna's Bhagavad Gita, right? Because he is also imperfect. So that also doesn't make sense. So that is the monist thinking of avatar. Now in Christianity also, there is a concept of avatar. They call it incarnation. Now their concept is avatar is something from spiritual comes down to the material but also has a spiritual together. So they believe that when Jesus, who is the Son of God, appeared, he has a divine qualities and he has a material quality. That's why the word uses incarnation. Karna means the flesh, right? Carne, carnivorous, you must have heard. So incarnation means the Supreme Lord comes in the flesh form. That's what the word incarnation means. So that is their concept. Whereas Bhagavad Gita, what Krishna says, avatar, or our scriptures, Vedic concept of avatar is something spiritual comes as spiritual in the material world. In other words, when Krishna comes to the material world, he still has the original form of the spiritual. That's why there is no difference. Krishna is not bound by these three modes of material nature. That is the reason we read Krishna's Bhagavad Gita, because this is still spiritual. It's not impacted by modes of material nature. That's why if you see Krishna's activities, whether it's stealing butter or stealing, ladies' clothes, still we glorify. Why? He has done it at a level of spiritual. If we do that, what is going to happen? Right? We'll be chastised or put behind the bars. But Krishna, we glorify. Even when he was 125 years old, he was still young. Why? Because he has a spiritual body. So that's the difference. But what happened is, there is no English word which explains this concept of the avatar. The spiritual comes in the material world as spiritual. That's why Sri Prabhupada had a choice. What to do? There was no English word. So he used the common word which is used in the Christianity, which is incarnation. Even though he knew the carnation means he has to come in the flesh form. Because sometimes what Prabhupada did is, he has to explain some complex concept. He would use the common words. If you use complex concept and complex word, that will be completely confusing, right, for people. So that is the reason. So this whole incarnation, transmigration is a very important. Now transmigration and incarnation is meant for us living entities who come in contact with the three modes of material nature. And that is actually very important concept about our Vedic culture, our Vedic scripture. Now if you discuss Hinduism with your colleagues in the office or something, the very first question they ask you is, do you believe in incarnation? Right? That's a very controversial topic. In fact, more and more people are accepting that. But unfortunately, if you do not have this concept of transmigration and incarnation, you cannot explain a lot of things in this world. In reality, if you think about it, incarnation, that whole transmigration process, was mentioned in the original Old Testament when the Christianity was started. But in the 3rd century, King Constantine, he wanted to have more power. So he removed this whole transmigration, the incarnation. Because if there is an incarnation concept, it means we are individually responsible for our destiny, right? Because I'm not responsible. It's not that the king or the church is responsible for my destiny. It's I'm responsible. But King Constantine wanted to have more power for himself. He said there is no incarnation, there's only one life. So either you go to heaven, eternally to the heaven, or eternally to the hell. So when only one chance was given, people had no choice to be loyal to the church or loyal to the king. Because if they are not, then eternally they are going to be hell. So that way the whole power came to the church and the king. So that's the whole reason. But the problem with scripture is, anytime you remove something, somewhere it falls. Because they are all connected, right? Now, if you think about it, because reincarnation was removed from Christianity, what happened is, if I am born poor, if I am born ugly, if I am born with certain problems, how do you explain that? That means God is partial, because you have only one chance. Now people started feeling God is partial, and that led to a lot of atheism. So that is why you see a lot of people are become atheists nowadays, because of this whole reincarnation, transmigration concept is not clearly explained in many scriptures. But Krishna says this in this word very clearly, Sada Sat Yoni Janmasu. If we are attached to these three modes of material nature, we have to go through the transmigration process and also reincarnation. This is the root cause of all problems in this world. This is the Bijavakya. Now, we looked at two verses today, 21 and 22, and you must be thinking, this is really bad. You know, like really horrifying. There is no hope at all, right? There's so many things, the Bijavakya, all the problems. Krishna is not like that. Krishna is actually tells the problem, and he always immediately want to give us help. He wants to say that I have help for you, don't worry. So he explains the problem like a parent, but immediately gives the solution. This is why after these two important verses, 13.21 and 22, Krishna talks about the help in the next verse, which is 13.23, where he says, Upadrashta anumanta cha varta bhokta maheshwara paramatmeti chapyokto dehesmin purusha paraha. Yet in this body there is another, a transcendental enjoyer, who is the Lord, the supreme proprietor, who exists as the overseer and permitter, and who is now as the super soul. So immediately after these two verses, Krishna is saying, do not worry. I am with you all the time, even though you go through reincarnation, transmigration process. I'm always with you as a super soul. All you have to do is just turn to me, look at me, and I can help you and come out of all these issues which I have explained. So that is the hope giving. This is what Srila Prabhupada wanted to do. Srila Prabhupada, all he wanted to give us is this direction towards Krishna consciousness, so that we don't have to go through this transmigration and reincarnation process. So if we follow this, then we don't have to worry about these three modes of material nature, reincarnation and transmigration. Thank you very much. Hare Krishna. Take maybe quick one or two questions. Yes, Mataji.
When you talk about three modes of nature and perception and action, aren't the actions always followed or a person acts according to his perception? So actually it's the perception is the one that...
Yeah, I mean, sometimes you might have only perception, no action, but sometimes after perception you will act also. But bottom line is, your perceptions and actions, sometimes you might act. The example I gave is that person who runs to the shop to buy all these things. He didn't have a perception, he just acted, right? So, perception and action, they might be independent or together, but bottom line is they are always influenced by these three modes of material nature. So that's why the more we are in towards the mode of goodness, then our perception also changes, our action can also be in mode of goodness, which is very conducive for bhakti. Any other question? No? Alright, so we'll have Prashadam. Thank you so much, and at 8:30 p.m. we'll have